My name is Emma Carter. I am 24 years old. I live in a small apartment above a bakery in a quiet street in Ohio. I have a steady job at a hospital where I work as a medical coder. It is not glamorous. It is honest work. I worked hard to get this job. I studied late nights, missed parties, and practiced typing until my fingers felt tired. When I finally got my first good paycheck, I felt proud. For the first time, I could buy my own food, pay my own rent, and save for a small trip. I had worked for this. Then my parents found out how much I make. That was the day everything changed. My parents, Mark and Susan Carter, came to my apartment 2 days after my birthday. They did not come to say, "Congratulations," or "We are proud of you." They came with a list of demands. They stood in my living room, arms crossed, voices low and sharp. "You're making good money now, Emma," my dad said. "You can help with bills. 50% every month." He had that same old tone he used when I was a child, and he wanted to make sure I did exactly what he said. My mom's face was red and tight, like someone had squeezed it too hard. She looked like a different person, not the woman who kissed my scraped knees when I was little, but someone who had learned to keep score. I felt my heart thump hard in my chest. 50%. Half of everything I earn. I thought of my rent, my grocery bills, my student loan. I thought of the oven I had been saving to buy for 6 months, of the clinic bills I had paid when my little brother was sick last year. 50% sounded like a knife sliding into my plans. "You can't do that," I said. My voice sounded calm, but inside I was shaking. I did not want to raise my voice. I was tired of screaming matches that ended in empty promises. "We are your parents," my mom said. "We raised you. We deserve help. You will give us half. It is only fair." She said it as if fairness had a one-size-fits-all rule, and it fit them. "Fair." I repeated. "You haven't helped me for years. You left the bills to me when I was a teenager. You never called when I was sick. You never asked how I was doing. Now you want half of my salary because you learned the number? That is not fair." My dad's jaw tightened. He had always been quick to find anger when things did not go his way. My mom put her hand on his arm like they were a single solid thing. In their eyes, I saw no warmth. I saw expectation and a kind of cold greed that hurt my chest. I had never meant to tell them my exact salary. I had told my dad that I was doing well enough when he asked over the phone. He asked again a week later, when he visited, and this time he poked around my desk and found a bank statement that a neighbor had mistakenly sent to our family email years ago. It had my name on it, and a number that made their eyebrows lift. They were careful and slow, like animals when they find a tasty bone. They sat at my kitchen table while the sun made long stripes across the floor. The moment felt like waiting before a storm. I wanted to keep my calm. I wanted to be the adult I had worked to be, but my insides told a different story. I had been a child with no choice for too long. I had been the one who paid for everything more times than I could count. I promised myself I would not be bullied by people who had not treated me like a daughter when I needed them most. "You can't take half," I said again, firmer this time. "I will help when I can, but I will not give you 50% every month. That would leave me with nothing." My father's face went pale. My mother's eyes flashed. Then my dad leaned forward like he was trying to make the table shrink between us. "This is not a request," he said. "This is how it will be." I looked at them. I felt small, but I also felt something else stir. It was a careful, cool plan I had kept tucked away for years. It was the kind of plan you make when people have taken more than they should, when they try to make you pay for their choices. Without looking away, I stood up and reached for a drawer in my kitchen. My fingers closed around a small, plain envelope. It was the same kind of envelope you use for bills. It looked ordinary. That was the point. I set the envelope on the table in front of him. "This is for you," I said. My mother smiled a little, a predator's smile. She reached for the envelope like it was a prize. But she did not open it. She waited for me to tell her what was inside. She wanted me to feel grateful and to thank them. She wanted me to cry and beg for forgiveness like I had done when I was 16 and needed gas money. I sat back in my chair and watched them. The sun moved across the floor. Outside, a child's laughter drifted up from the street. Inside, the house felt silent, heavy with waiting. Then I said the words that would make the room hold its breath. "The envelope has a copy of everything you will get from me," I said. "It also has something else." My father's hand hovered above the envelope, then dropped. "What else?" he demanded. His voice trembled around the edges. My mother leaned in, eyes wide. "I put something in the envelope that will make you think," I said. "I put truth in it." My mother opened her mouth, ready to scold. My dad reached for the envelope with a quick movement. But before they could see, I told them I wanted them to read it alone. I said it calmly, but my voice did not shake. I asked them to go to their car. It did not make sense, but it sounded official. They looked at each other. Then, like two actors who had practiced obedience for years, they stood. They took the envelope. Their hands were steady. They left without a word. When the door clicked shut behind them, I felt the air in my apartment change. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. I folded my hands and tried to breathe. I wanted to go after them, to tell them to open it now. But I did not. I did not want to be the one to show them how weak they had been. Outside, I heard the car engine turn over and the tires crunch gravel as they drove away. I sat at my kitchen table and listened to the quiet like it was a prize. A part of me was afraid. A part of me was ready for anything. Minutes passed. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my brother, Ben. He asked if I was okay. I told him I was. He sent a heart. I smiled, then looked at the envelope on my table. Its paper felt like a small secret. I thought back to the years when I had done everything for them. I remembered nights I sat in my car outside their house, waiting with a pizza in my lap, because they said they were fine, and I did not want them to be alone. I remembered the time my mother left all her bills to me after she lost her job, and then cut me out of the will 2 years later. I remembered small betrayals that added up until they felt like a mountain. I had helped because I loved them. I had paid for things because I thought love was how you kept people safe. But there's a limit to how much one heart can bear. There is a point when kindness becomes a ladder they climb and leave you at the bottom. And that was the point I had reached. I began to think of a number. 1, the month. 2, the saving. 3, the move. I had been saving secretly. I had not told them because I knew what would happen. People change when they smell money. They become hungry. They forget the small things that used to matter.
You could see it in their eyes that day.
The day they left, the sky was soft and blue. The leaves on the tree outside my window barely moved. I felt a strange calm settle in my chest. I opened the envelope. Inside, there were 2 things. First, there was a single sheet of paper. It had a list of numbers, account statements, amounts I owed, receipts that showed how much I had paid for things for them over the years. I had made copies from old records and bank statements. I had written down dates and small notes next to each number. Replaced furnace. 2019, $1,200. Car insurance. 2017, $600. Hospital payment. 2023, $850. Each line was neat and clear. It was a ledger of things I had covered when they could not or would not. The second thing in the envelope was a small, folded paper that looked like a legal form. It was not one I had filled out lightly. I had taken a day off work 2 months earlier and sat in a public library to write it. It was a letter. It was written plainly and simply. The letter read, in my handwriting, "Mark and Susan, I love you. I always will. But I will not be treated like a bank. I will not accept demands after years of being taken for granted. You told me today to give you 50% of my salary. I cannot. I will not. You are adults. You are responsible for your choices. If you need help, I will help with reasonable amounts and with proof of need. For that, you must read the list in this envelope and accept what is true. In this envelope is a record of what I have already given and a plan for what I will give in the future, if you accept the rules. I had a lawyer write the short agreement I have enclosed. You are welcome to read it. If you sign it, I will continue to help in ways I can. If you do not sign it, I will stop giving money, and I will pursue the money I have already spent on your behalf.
Do not call me tonight. Read. Think.
I will not be bullied.
Emma.
I had written it calmly, without drama. But the words felt heavy in my hands. I had proof. I had a plan. I had used the tools I had, patience, paper, and the courage to say no. I knew it would hurt them to see the list. I had watched them for years ignore the small ways they had taken advantage of me. Seeing it on paper, all neat and tidy, would force them to feel it. I had learned that truth on paper can be sharper than any argument. I folded the letter back and put it in the envelope. I closed it with a piece of tape. It felt final, like a door closing. I placed the envelope on the table and took a deep breath. I did not feel triumphant. I felt steady and sure. That itself was a kind of victory. I waited. When they came back, it was not a quiet return. It was a storm. My mother walked in first, dragging her handbag like a shield. My father followed, his eyes hot.
He did not look at me.
He looked at the table where the envelope had lain. My stomach tightened. I had expected anger. What I had not expected was the sound of my mother's breath as she read. She read the ledger slowly at first, then faster. Her hand covered her mouth. My father's face changed from angry to pale. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Time slowed. The sun came down and made the table glow in a sad way. My mother sat down hard. Her face was wet. My father stood like a statue. You counted? My mother whispered. I did, I said. My voice was steady. I did not look away. My father laughed then, a thin, brittle sound. You think you can blackmail us? He said. His voice trembled. This is not blackmail, I said. This is truth. My mother's hands shook as she read the paper again. She reached for the legal form. Her fingers were stiff. She read the short agreement, and her eyes darted from line to line. When she finished, she pressed both palms to her face and rocked a little. It was not the kind of crying that asked for forgiveness. It was the kind that felt like a sudden, sharp pain. My father's voice rose. He said the old lines he always used. You owe us respect. We are your parents. You will not threaten us with papers. I did not flinch. I took a breath and said the next part of what I had decided to say. I want you to sign the agreement, I said. If you do not, I will stop sending money. I will close the accounts that I open for you in my name. If you attempt to take money from me without my permission, I will go to the proper places and get what I am owed. I am serious. My father's face went red. You threatened us with lawyers, he spat. You will regret this. My mother looked like she wanted to run out of the apartment and never come back. Instead, she stayed and stared at me.
For a long time she did not speak.
Then she said very slowly, Emma, we are your parents. How can you say such things to us? How can you ask for half my salary? I answered. How can you expect me to give you half of everything after all this? After you told me I was selfish when I did not give you money as a teen? After you refused to help when I needed help? I am not a bank. I am your daughter. The words hung in the air like a chair suspended by a single rope. Then something happened that I did not expect. My father turned away and left the apartment quickly. He slammed the door behind him. My mother stayed, but she looked like a person who had seen a ghost. She sat on my couch and put her face in her hands. The sound of wailing that came from her was not loud, but it filled the room. I stood there, hands clenched at my sides, and watched. My heart beat like a small drum. I had expected anger, but not this kind of helplessness. This kind of raw grief was different. My mother had never cried like this in front of me before. For a moment, I felt a desire to run to her and hold her. But the long line of memories kept me still. The time she had shrugged when I needed support. The time she had taken credit for my college scholarship at a dinner with her friends. The nights I had sat outside their house wondering if we would ever be a family again. The crying stopped without warning. My mother looked up slowly, her face wet. She said, "What will people think? Your father will look weak. He will look like he failed." I felt a strange rise of anger. Not at her, but at the way their whole life had been built around appearances. For years they chose pride over truth. For years they would rather keep up with neighbors than be honest with their own child.
I wanted to say everything.
I wanted to tell her how lonely I had been. I wanted to tell her about nights I skipped dinner so I could pay rent. I wanted to show her the small, ugly holes in the life they had built and ask why they never noticed them. But that would be a thunderstorm of words that could not be put back into a bottle. Instead, I did what I had planned. I took a folder from under my chair. Inside were other papers. Copies of text messages, proof of payments I had made for them over the years, bank records with their names and dates. I set them one by one on the table. My hands were steady. My breathing was slow. My mother's hands trembled as she touched the papers. She did not speak. She stared. The air felt thin. Then my father's car horn sounded outside, loud and angry. My heart leaped. He had come back. He had come back faster than I expected. He did not walk in. He stood outside the door, staring up at my window. He shouted my name in a way that made the whole building tilt.
Emma, you will not ruin us, he yelled.
His voice carried like thunder across the street. People in the hallway looked up. The neighbor from downstairs peered out, eyes wide. The bakery owner across the street stopped sweeping and stared. My cheeks burned. For a moment I had this strange feeling of being a stage actress in a bad play. Then, with a sound that made me feel like something inside me broke, my father turned and walked away again. Not fast this time. Slowly, like a man who had realized his legs could not carry him. My mother wiped her face and stood. She moved to the table and took the folder. She looked at me as if she were trying to find the daughter she had once known. The silence stretched. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally. Her voice was small. I looked at her and felt a strange calm. I had worked for this moment in quiet ways. I had not saved for revenge. I had saved for my life. I had written things down because I wanted truth, not pain. I had made a choice that day to stop being taken advantage of. "I will not be bullied," I said. "I will help if you follow the rules. If not, I will stop. I will get the money I am owed." My mother's lower lip quivered. She nodded, slowly, like someone agreeing to a strange bargain. She left the apartment after a long pause. The door clicked shut. I stood alone in my quiet kitchen. The envelope lay on the table. The papers lay scattered like a map of years. I felt like I had been through a storm and come out on the other side. I felt empty and light at the same time. Then my phone rang. It was my brother, Ben. He sounded frantic. "Emma, Dad is at the hospital," he said. His voice broke. He collapsed in the car. "They took him into emergency. Mom is with him. They think it's the heart." My knees went weak. The room tilted. The papers blurred. I felt a hot, cold wave wash over me. I did not know if I should run to the hospital or stay put. I had not planned for this. I had planned for words and papers and decisions. I had not planned for my father to fall like a house of cards. I grabbed my coat. The street outside felt sharp and loud. Sirens got closer. I realized then that everything I had done would have consequences I could not see. I had opened a door I could not close. My mother's screams, my father's collapse, the neighbor's eyes, these were all part of the cost. As I rushed out of my building, my phone buzzed again. My mother's number flashed. I put the car into gear and drove toward the bright hospital lights. I told myself I had done the right thing. I told myself I had set boundaries. But my hands shook on the wheel. The city lights slid past like a movie. I prayed in a small, secret way that my father would be okay. I prayed that my mother could find truth without losing herself completely. I prayed that the ledger and the paper and the choices I had made would heal more than they hurt. The hospital doors slid open and I ran inside. The waiting room smelled like bleach and coffee and worry. People sat like statues, eyes on screens or hands folded. I found my mother by the receptionist's desk, her face pale and drawn. She looked up when she saw me, and for a second, we looked like two strangers who shared a deep, complicated secret. "Is he okay?" I asked. My voice was small. The words felt too fragile for the room. She shook her head slowly.
"They don't know yet," she said.
"They are running tests. The doctor said it could be stress. It could be something else." A cold fear wrapped around my heart. I had not meant to cause harm. I had meant only to make things honest. I had meant to create rules so we could all be fair. I pulled out the folder with the papers and kept it folded in my bag. I had a lawyer's number in my phone. I had a plan. But none of those things mattered in that moment. All that mattered was that a man I had loved in a complicated way lay under bright lights while machines beeped and the world felt too sharp. I sat down next to my mother. Her hand found mine, and we held onto each other like a small island in the middle of a storm. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, the waiting room lights hummed. The papers I had placed on my table that morning felt far away. In their place was a new kind of waiting, sharper and colder than the last. The extreme event had come. My father's collapse. It was a sudden, life-sized consequence of choices we had all made. I clutched my mother's hand and stared at the clock on the wall. The minute hand moved like a heavy foot. The next chapter of our lives had begun, and I had no idea if it would be a path to healing or a trail of broken things. I breathed in. I breathed out. Then I waited. The clock in the hospital waiting room ticked louder than any clock I had ever heard in my life. Every second felt like it was trying to push its way into my chest. My mother sat beside me, her hands trembling in her lap. Her eyes were squeezed shut, as if she were trying to hold her whole world together by force. I kept hearing the doctor's words in my head. It could be stress. Stress. Such a small word. But in that moment it felt heavy enough to crush everything around me. I didn't know if the stress meant the conversation we had earlier. I didn't know if it meant bills or debts, or years of pretending everything was fine when nothing was fine. I didn't know if he had been hiding something. I didn't know anything. And that unknown sat in my chest like a cold stone. I kept thinking, what if this is my fault? But another voice inside me whispered back, you only told the truth. You only protected yourself. Both voices felt true. And both hurt. A nurse walked past us, holding a chart, and my mother jumped as if she'd been shocked. When will they tell us something? She whispered. Her voice cracked in the middle, like she was trying hard not to break. I don't know, I said softly. I wanted to put my arm around her, but I didn't know if I should. She and my father had spent years ignoring me unless they needed money or favors. Comforting her felt strange, like reaching out for the hand of someone who had let go of yours many times before. But she was still my mother. I placed my hand over hers. She didn't pull away. She didn't say anything. She just let out a long breath, like she had been holding it for hours. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. Finally, a doctor in blue scrubs walked toward us. Her face was calm. Serious. My stomach dropped. Family of Mark Carter? She asked. We both stood up at the same time.
He's stable, she said.
My knees almost buckled. My mom burst into tears, covering her face. He's still undergoing tests, but he's stable. His heart rhythm was irregular when he came in. We think it was caused by a sudden spike in blood pressure. Blood pressure. I swallowed hard. The conversation earlier replayed in my mind like a movie scene I wished I could pause, rewind, or delete. He's awake, the doctor added. You can see him one at a time. My mother turned to me. You go first, she whispered. Her voice sounded strange, not angry, not demanding, just tired. It surprised me, but I nodded. I followed the doctor down a hallway that smelled like sanitizer and metal. The lights were too bright. Every footstep echoed. When she opened the curtain to my dad's room, I felt my heart trip over itself. My father was lying on the bed, wires attached to his chest, a blood pressure cuff around his arm, and 4 running into his hand. He looked smaller. Not physically. My dad was still a large man, but smaller in a way that made him human instead of the impossible force he had always been in my life. He looked up when he heard me walk in. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were tired.
Sad. Confused.
For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he said, Emma. One word, but it carried years inside it. I stepped closer. How are you feeling? He huffed a short breath. Like my body betrayed me. I didn't know what to say. He shifted a little, then asked, Your mother, she's here? Yes. He nodded. His hand twitched against the blanket. Then he said something I didn't expect. "We didn't mean to make you feel used." I froze. He looked up at the ceiling, eyes glassy. "But I guessed we did." My throat tightened. "I saw the papers," he continued. I didn't know it was that much." He swallowed hard, as if the truth was a heavy thing going down. "I told myself we were just asking for help," he said softly. "But maybe we were taking advantage. Maybe we were wrong." A tear slid down the side of his face. My father never cried. Not when he lost his job. Not when his mother died. Not when our roof caved in during a storm years ago. Seeing that tear felt like watching a mountain crack. "I'm not proud of how I spoke to you," he said. "Or how I acted." I felt my chest tighten. My heart ached in a strange, bittersweet way. I had waited years to hear even one sentence of accountability. Now it was coming from a hospital bed with machines beeping in the background. He took a shaky breath. "Your mother and we didn't know how to ask for help without sounding demanding. We didn't know how to admit we're struggling." That sentence hit me like a brick. Struggling? My father's voice got quieter. "Those bills, the ones you paid before, they saved us." He blinked slowly, as if each blink took effort. "We should have thanked you," he whispered. "We should have been better parents." My throat felt too tight to speak. I wiped my eyes quickly, so he wouldn't see. I wanted to say, "It's okay." I wanted to say, "I forgive you." I wanted to say, "Everything will be all right." But I couldn't. Not yet. So instead I said, "We can talk about everything when you're better." He nodded, tired. "Yeah, that's fair." He closed his eyes. I watched his chest rise and fall. Slow, steady, alive. I stood there for a while longer, letting the quiet fill the room. Then I whispered, "I'm glad you're okay." And I left. When I stepped out into the hallway, I let out a long breath I didn't know I had been holding. My mother rushed past me and into the room without saying a word, tears still on her cheeks. I sat down in the hallway chair. My hands were shaking. I thought the worst was over. I thought the storm had passed. But life has this strange way of surprising you right when you think you can breathe again. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a message from my landlord. "Emma, call me ASAP. It's urgent." My stomach twisted. I called him. He picked up on the first ring. "Emma? I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something. Did you give permission to anyone to enter your apartment today?" My heart stopped. "No," I said slowly. "Why?" He exhaled sharply. "Your door was unlocked when I went up to check on a water leak. And, Emma, someone went through your things." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "There are drawers open," he said. "Your papers are all over the floor. Someone was searching for something. It looks deliberate." My pulse roared in my ears. The only people who knew where my spare key was. The only people who knew my schedule. The only people who knew I'd be at the hospital. My parents. But they were here. Both of them. Then who? "Emma," my landlord said, voice tense. "There's more." My fingers tightened on the phone. He took a breath. "There was a man in the hallway earlier. He said he was your cousin. He left when I asked for his name and looked nervous." I frowned. "I don't have any cousins in Ohio." "I figured," he muttered. Then he said the sentence that made my whole world tilt sideways. "He was carrying one of your folders." My heart dropped straight into my stomach. My folder. My folder with copies of bank statements. My folder with the agreements. My folder with everything. Someone had broken into my apartment. Someone had taken my documents. Someone who knew enough to look for them. Someone who wasn't a stranger. And someone who clearly had a plan. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "Lock my apartment," I said. "Call security. I'm coming now." I hung up. My entire body felt cold. There was no way my parents did it. They were here, and the timeline didn't match. But someone else knew something. Someone else wanted something. My parents' drama had opened a door without meaning to, and someone had just walked through it. I took one step toward the exit. Then another. And then, As I reached the sliding doors of the hospital, someone grabbed my arm. Hard. I turned around, heart pounding, and froze when I saw who it was. The last person on earth I wanted to see. The next extreme event had just arrived. The hand that grabbed my arm was cold, strong, and too familiar. I turned slowly and my stomach twisted. It was Evan. My ex. My biggest mistake. The person I had blocked on everything 2 years ago after he drained my savings, lied about debts, and disappeared without even a sorry. The same person who once told me, "You're too soft, Emma. That's why people use you." He was standing right in front of me, dressed in a wrinkled hoodie with tired eyes and a smirk that made my skin crawl. "Long time," he said quietly. My heart thudded hard. "What are you doing here?" I whispered. My voice was shaky, but steady enough to hide the fear climbing up my throat. He looked me up and down like he was trying to read something invisible on my face. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I said, pulling my arm back. "We don't." He stepped closer anyway. Too close. "You changed your locks," he said. "Nice." Didn't stop me, though. My breath caught. "What?" I whispered. He smiled. A slow, nasty smile. "You really think I didn't know where you kept your spare key?" he asked. "Come on, Em. I know you better than anyone." Cold panic slid through me like ice water. My landlord said a cousin. A man carrying a folder. A man who ran when questioned. Evan. Evan had broken into my apartment. Evan had gone through my things. Evan had taken my folder. My stomach knotted, so hard I thought I might fall. "What did you take?" I demanded. His smile widened. Everything I needed. My fingers curled into fists. Anger was replacing fear now, bubbling hotter and hotter. "You're a criminal," I said. "You stole from me." He lifted a shoulder. "Relax. I only borrowed a few documents." Then he leaned in, his voice low. "Your parents came to me months ago, you know, asking about your job, your salary, your savings. I didn't tell them anything. I figured you'd come tell me eventually." My heart flipped. "My parents talked to you? Why?" "For money," he said simply. "They told me you were doing better than you deserved. They asked if you were hiding cash. I told them I didn't care." My pulse roared in my ears. So while I had been struggling to set boundaries, while I had been trying to protect myself, while I had been finally standing up, my parents had secretly gone behind my back to the one person who had hurt me the most. Evan watched my face, and his smile softened like he enjoyed seeing me break. "Anyway," he said, "I heard you're making good money now. And those papers I found? Very interesting numbers, Emma." I stepped back. "Give them back." He shook his head slowly. "No." "Evan." "You know," he said, interrupting me, "I was thinking, it'd be nice if you helped me out a little. I'm in some trouble, and you're doing well. So I figured with all the documents I now have, I could convince you to share." A chill shot through my body. "Are you blackmailing me?" I whispered. He smiled again. Not a warm smile. Not a human smile. It was the smile of someone who had decided your life was worth money to them. "I'm giving you a chance to help me," he said. "Let's not call it ugly names." My hands shook. I looked at the busy hospital lobby. Too many people. Too many cameras. Too many eyes. I couldn't scream. I couldn't shove him. I couldn't cause a scene. But he could. And that made me feel trapped. "Meet me tomorrow," he said. "Alone. 9 p.m. at the old parking lot near the river." "No," I said. "Never." He leaned in again. "Then I'll share your documents. All of them. With the wrong people." My throat tightened. He patted my shoulder, like he owned me, and walked away casually, whistling softly, as if he had just ordered a coffee. I watched him disappear into the night. Then my knees nearly gave out. The hospital doors slid open behind me as someone walked out, but everything felt far away. The lights, the voices, the beeping from inside, they all became blurry noise. My chest felt tight. Too tight. My parents. The envelope. The argument. My father collapsing. The hospital. And now Evan. Every part of my life felt like it was being squeezed at once. I took shaky breaths until the world stopped spinning. Then I walked back inside the hospital, forcing my legs to move, step by step, even though I felt like I was walking through thick mud. I needed to think. I needed a plan. And I needed one fast. I sat down again in the waiting room. The chairs were hard and cold, and the smell of coffee from the vending machine felt too strong. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the floor tiles. Everything told me to panic, but something inside me, something small but strong, whispered, "Not this time. Not again. Not ever." I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and straightened my back. I wasn't the same girl Evan used to manipulate. I wasn't the same daughter my parents could guilt. I wasn't powerless. I had changed. I just didn't know that the next thing that would happen would test me more than anything else. A nurse rushed down the hallway suddenly, pushing a cart. Her voice was sharp, urgent. "Code blue in room 14. Room 14. My father's room." I froze. People jumped up. Nurses sprinted. A doctor ran past me. My mother's scream echoed down the hall. I stood up, heart slamming against my ribs. This wasn't stress anymore. This wasn't just a scare. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. And everything, my family, the envelope, the papers, Evan, the threats, all slammed together at once like a crashing wave. I took off running toward room 14. The next extreme event had arrived, and this one could change everything forever. The hallway lights blurred as I ran toward room 14. My feet barely touched the floor. I felt like I was moving through a dream I couldn't wake up from. Nurses pushed carts. A doctor barked instructions. Someone shouted for a crash kit. My mother was crying so loudly it cut through everything else like glass. When I reached the doorway, a nurse stopped me with both hands. "You can't go in," she said. "I'm his daughter." I cried. "I know, but you can't go in right now." Behind her, I saw flashes of movement. A doctor leaning over the bed. A nurse adjusting wires. Another switching out a monitor. I never saw anything graphic, just shapes and urgency and fear. My mother stood to the side, shaking like a leaf, clutching the bed rail as if she might fall. A nurse held her shoulders to keep her steady. I tried to step forward again, but the nurse pushed gently but firmly. "Please," she said softly. "Let us work." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Is he? I couldn't finish. "He's fighting," she said. "Let us help him." My entire body went cold. My dad, the man who once screamed at me for scratching his truck, who embarrassed me in public, who demanded half my salary, was lying in that bed fighting to breathe, fighting to stay alive, fighting while I stood in a hallway feeling like air was disappearing. My mother reached for me suddenly, grabbing my arm. "This is your fault," she whispered, her voice cracking. "All this stress, this argument, this." "Stop," the nurse said sharply, stepping between us. "Not now." But the words were already in my ears, digging deep like splinters. "This is your fault." I backed away slowly until my back hit the wall. My legs slid down, and I sat on the cold tile floor. Everything inside me felt heavy and empty at the same time. My father's voice earlier, soft, apologetic, honest, replayed in my head. We should have been better parents. I pressed my hands to my face. I didn't want anger right now. I didn't want blame. I didn't want the ledger or the envelope or Evan or anyone else. I just wanted my dad to survive. Minutes passed like hours. Nurses moved quickly, in, out, carrying supplies and monitors. The curtain stayed closed. I heard mumbling from the staff but couldn't make out words. Finally, the door swung open and the lead doctor stepped out. His face wasn't panicked, but it wasn't calm either. He walked over to me first, then to my mother. "Mr. Carter stabilized," he said. "He had a sudden rhythm issue, but we corrected it." My mother gasped, then covered her mouth, tears falling again. I closed my eyes, relief flooding through me so hard it left me dizzy. "He needs rest," the doctor continued. "Lots of it. And a less emotional strain." His eyes moved from my mother to me. Stress can cause setbacks. I nodded quickly.
Yes.
Of course. He placed a hand on my mother's arm. You can see him in about 30 minutes.
Just one at a time.
Keep the room calm. We agreed silently. The doctor walked away. My mother slumped into a chair, breathing hard.
She didn't look at me.
She didn't say thank you, or sorry, or even speak. She just stared at the floor. I sat across from her. For the first time in years, we weren't fighting. But we weren't together either. It felt like a fragile truce held together by fear. The hallway quieted. The machines inside my dad's room beeped softly. Nurses whispered instead of ran. But my heart didn't calm, because I remembered the other storm waiting for me outside the hospital walls. Evan. The stolen folder. The threats. The 9 p.m. meeting. My hands trembled. I checked the time on my phone. 8:41 p.m. 18 minutes until Evan expected me. I couldn't leave the hospital. I couldn't abandon my father. I couldn't let Evan blackmail me either. I was stuck, squeezed between two disasters happening at the same time. I forced myself to stand and walk into the bathroom to think. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. My eyes looked tired. My hair was messy. My shirt was wrinkled. I looked like someone who had spent the whole day fighting invisible fires. But behind all of that, there was something new. A sharper strength. A clarity. I wasn't the girl Evan bullied. I wasn't the girl my parents controlled. I wasn't powerless. I just needed to act, and act smart. I reached for my phone. I typed a message. Not to Evan. Not to my parents. Not to my landlord. But to someone I had never planned to involve.
Ben.
My little brother. The only person in our family who had ever loved me without conditions. I texted. Ben, I need your help. Don't ask questions yet. Can you meet me behind the hospital in 5 minutes? It's urgent. He replied instantly. On my way. I stepped out of the bathroom and walked past my mother. She looked up slightly, but I didn't stop. I headed for the back exit, pulling my jacket tight around me. The night air was cold, and the parking lot lights cast long shadows across the pavement. My breath came out in soft clouds. A few seconds later, Ben appeared, jogging toward me. His hair was messy, his jacket too thin for the weather, worry written all over his face. Emma? What's going on? Is Dad? Dad is stable, I said quickly. He's going to be okay for now. Ben let out a shaky breath. Good. Thank God. He shoved his hands into his pockets. So what's wrong? You look scared. I am, I admitted. Ben, someone broke into my apartment today. His eyes widened.
What? Who?
My ex. His jaw tightened. Ben had always hated Evan. And there's more, I whispered. He stole documents. Important ones. He's trying to blackmail me for money. Ben's whole expression changed. Not fear. Not confusion. But anger. A quiet, controlled anger I had never seen in him before. What does he want? Ben asked. He wants me to meet him tonight. Alone. In 15 minutes. Ben shook his head fast. You're not going alone. I know, I said. That's why I texted you. He stepped closer. Emma, what's the plan? I swallowed hard. I need you to go in my place. His eyes snapped up to mine. Me? Yes, I whispered. I need eyes on him. I need him to think I'm coming. I need time to figure out what he really took and what we can do. I can't go. Dad needs me here. And Evan won't hurt you. He's not violent, just desperate. Ben looked unsure. That sounds dangerous. I know, I said. But I trust you. I need you. Please. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. For you, he said. Always. I hugged him. Something we hadn't done in months. He hugged me back tightly. Then he stepped away. I'll go, he said. Tell me exactly what to say. I told him everything. Where to stand. What to do. What not to do.
How to stall for time.
How to listen. How to observe. Ben listened carefully, jaw clenched, eyes focused. When I finished, he nodded. Okay, he said. I got this. He turned to leave. But before he walked away, I grabbed his arm. Ben.
He looked back.
Be careful, I whispered. He gave a small smile. I will. He disappeared into the night. I stood alone in the cold air, shivering from fear and exhaustion. Inside, my father was recovering. Outside, my brother was walking into a trap for me. And then,
My phone buzzed again.
a number I didn't recognize. I opened the message. And the second I read it, my entire body froze. It said, if your brother shows up in your place, he won't make it home.
Come alone.
13 minutes. My hands trembled so hard, I nearly dropped the phone. Evan knew. He knew everything. He was watching us. And now my brother was walking straight into danger. I took off running toward the parking lot, heart pounding, breath sharp. Because the next extreme event wasn't just coming. It was already happening. The parking lot seemed twice as big as it had been minutes earlier. The cold air slapped my face as I ran, but I barely felt it. My only thought was one thing, repeating over and over like a drumbeat. Ben is in danger. Ben is in danger. Ben is in danger. My lungs burned, my legs trembled, and every breath felt like it came from somewhere deep and frightened inside me. When I reached my car, I yanked the door open, slid inside, and sped out of the hospital parking lot so fast the tires squeaked against the pavement. My hands shook on the wheel, but I forced myself to focus. I knew every turn between the hospital and the old river parking lot. I'd driven it before. But tonight the road looked different, darker, sharper, like it was warning me that I was running straight into something dangerous. The streetlights grew thinner as I drove toward the river. The houses became spaced out. The trees leaned in closer. The night got colder.
My phone rang. Ben.
I answered immediately. Ben, where are you? His voice was tense. Emma, I'm almost there. What's wrong? Why did you tell me to turn back?
I didn't, I said.
But Evan knows you're coming. He sent me a message. He said. I swallowed hard. He said if you show up instead of me, you won't make it home. Ben didn't speak for a long second. Then he said, I'm already here. My heart dropped. I slammed on the brakes and pulled over. My hands flew to my mouth. Ben, listen to me, I said, voice shaking. Stay in your car. Don't get out. I'm coming. No, he said firmly. If I stay in the car, he might come to me. Better I stay outside where I can see everything. No, I cried. Please, just wait inside until I get there. He was silent. Then he whispered, Emma, he's standing right in front of me. My breath froze. What do you mean? He's here, Ben whispered. He walked out from behind the old building. He's coming closer. Panic punched me in the chest. Ben, get in your car now. I'm trying, he said, voice rising. But he's... The line crackled. I heard muffled voices. Then a thump.
Ben?
Ben. No answer. I pressed the gas pedal so hard the engine groaned. The river parking lot came into view. Dim. Wide. Surrounded by broken streetlights and tall grass. My headlights brushed across the empty pavement. Empty. At first I didn't see anything. Then the light landed on two shadows. One tall, one on the ground. My heart nearly stopped. I swerved into the lot and jumped out before the car even came to a complete stop. The gravel crunched under my feet as I ran toward them. Evan turned around when he heard me. He wasn't hurting Ben, thank God, but he was standing over him, a folder clutched in his hand. My folder. Ben was on the ground because he had slipped in the wet grass, not because Evan had done anything to him. His hands were braced on the ground as he tried to stand. Relief hit me so hard it almost knocked me down. But then Evan smirked at me. I knew you'd come, he said. I rushed to Ben and helped him up, checking his arms, his face, everything. I'm okay, Ben whispered. He didn't touch me. I tripped. I'm okay. I let out a breath I'd been holding for too long. Then I faced Evan. What do you want? I demanded. Evan lifted the folder in one hand like it weighed nothing. This, he said. This folder is worth a lot. It's private, I said. You stole it. He shrugged. You left it where I could find it. That's your fault. Anger rose in my chest like heat. No, I said. You broke into my apartment. You're a thief. He tilted his head. Maybe, he said calmly, but I can also be your problem. Or your solution. I stepped closer. What do you want from me? He smiled slowly. I want money, he said. A lot of it. And considering your parents think you're a walking bank, I figured you might finally agree. I felt my hands curl into fists. You will get nothing from me. Evan's eyes darkened. Are you sure? He asked. Because I can show these documents to people who would love to know more about your finances. And your parents' finances. And your father's debts. I blinked. What debts? Evan smiled wider, the kind that wasn't a smile at all. You really don't know? He asked softly. Your dad owes people. Real money. To real collectors. The kind you don't ignore. The kind who don't care that he's in the hospital. My stomach twisted hard. My father doesn't owe. Oh yes, he does. Evan cut in. A lot more than you think. My voice trembled. You're lying. Am I? He said. Funny thing is, those collectors called me. They thought I still lived with you. They told me things your parents didn't even tell you. I felt dizzy. My father's collapse. The stress. The panic in my mother's eyes. Pieces began to slide together. No. It couldn't be true. I don't believe you, I said. You don't have to, Evan replied smugly. But you will. Especially when they come knocking on your door looking for him. I felt a chill run down my spine. Ben, now standing beside me, stepped forward. Anger burned in his eyes. Stay away from her, he said. Evan laughed softly. Relax, kid. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to negotiate. He held the folder up again. You want this back? He said. It'll cost you. My jaw tightened. How much? I asked. Evan's smile widened. $50,000. I laughed, a harsh, shocked laugh. Are you insane? I don't have that kind of money. I know you don't, he said. But you can get it. Or your parents can. A cold realization washed over me. Evan didn't just want money. He wanted control. He wanted access. He wanted leverage. You think you can blackmail me? I asked softly. I know I can, he said. Unless you want your parents' debts exposed. Or your own income documents spread around. Or worse. He lowered his voice, staring straight into my eyes. Unless you want those collectors to know where your family lives. My breath caught. Ben stepped forward, fists clenched. You're a coward, he snapped. You're threatening a family that's already. Ben, I whispered, pulling him back. Don't. Evan smirked again. You have 3 days, he said. 50,000. Or I start sharing. He tossed the folder lightly from one hand to the other. And trust me, he added, I already made copies. My heart dropped. Of course he did. Then he turned away and began walking toward the dark side of the lot. I watched him go, my chest tight, my stomach twisted in knots. Ben looked at me, panic rising in his eyes. What are we going to do? He whispered. I looked toward the river, the moonlight reflecting on the water like a thin sheet of silver. My parents, my father's collapse, their hidden debts, the envelope, the betrayal, the truth, and Evan. Every secret, every lie, every threat, all of them were slamming into each other at once, turning my life into something I barely recognized. I took a slow breath and turned to Ben. We're going to fight back, I said quietly. We're not paying him, not $1. Ben swallowed hard. Then how do we stop him? I looked down at the ground. And right there, in that moment, I realized something important. Evan didn't know me anymore. He didn't know who I'd become. And he didn't know what I had in motion already. Because hours earlier, before everything went crazy, I had done something small. Something simple. Something smart. I had emailed a lawyer. A lawyer who had already been reviewing my documents. A lawyer who already had copies. A lawyer who had just texted me 1 hour ago. I looked up at Ben, and my voice steadied. We're not alone, I whispered. Ben frowned. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him the message. Emma, I reviewed everything. Call me first thing tomorrow. And Emma, the situation is much bigger than you think. Ben's eyes widened. What does that mean? He asked. I stared out at the empty parking lot where Evan had disappeared. My voice came out low and certain. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I spent the entire drive back to the hospital gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. Ben followed behind me in his car, refusing to leave my side. When we arrived, the halls were quieter, the lights dimmer, the world slower, but my mind was racing like it was trying to outrun something. When we stepped into the waiting room, my mother was curled in a chair, asleep with her head bent forward. She looked older than I remembered, smaller, tired, as if the weight of the last 24 hours had settled onto her shoulders and refused to move. Ben walked over and gently placed a blanket on her from the empty chair next to her. She stirred but didn't wake. I sat down across from them and pressed my palms over my face. My ex was threatening blackmail. My parents were drowning in debt. My father was lying in a hospital bed. And somewhere, someone dangerous was looking for the money my father owed. It felt like the walls were closing in. But then my phone buzzed. A text from the lawyer. Call me now. I don't care what time it is. My heart jumped. I stepped into the empty hallway and dialed. He answered immediately. Emma, he said, almost breathless, I need you to listen carefully. I reviewed everything you sent me, your parents' debts, the payments you made for years, the records of what they asked you for, the ledger you created, even the agreement letter you drafted. And Emma, your parents are in deeper trouble than you think. My throat tightened. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. What kind of trouble? I whispered. He sighed. The kind that doesn't come from credit cards or banks. The kind that comes from private lenders. My stomach dropped. And worse, he added, it looks like your father didn't owe money alone. Someone else used his name to borrow more. My heart slammed inside my chest. Who? I whispered. He didn't hesitate. Your ex. My mouth fell open. What? Evan? How? It seems he convinced your father to co-sign for a very large amount. And when Evan vanished, the collectors came after your father instead. It explains the stress, the secrecy, everything. My legs felt weak. It made sense. It made too much sense. And then the lawyer said something that made my breath stop. And those documents Evan stole? They don't protect him. They protect you. Because your ledger proves years of financial abuse, and the debt he took in your father's name is illegal. We can stop him. Completely. I held the phone tightly. What do I do? I whispered. You let me handle it, he said. I filed something tonight, an emergency protective order and a fraud report. If Evan tries to use your documents, he'll be the one in handcuffs. I pressed my back against the cold hallway wall, shaking with relief. And Emma, the lawyer added, his voice softer now, you did everything right. Everything. You weren't cruel. You weren't unfair. You protected yourself. And now you can protect your family, too. My eyes filled with tears, the kind you feel in your throat first before they reach your eyes. I whispered, thank you. Tomorrow, he said, come to my office. We'll finish everything. I ended the call and leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't over. But for the first time, the end didn't feel like a cliff. It felt like a door finally opening. When I walked back into the waiting room, Ben stood up immediately. What did he say? He asked. I wiped my eyes. We're going to be okay, I said quietly. All of us. He let out a shaky breath of relief. What about Evan? He asked. A small, steady fire lit inside me. Not anger, not fear.
Clarity. He's done, I said.
He just doesn't know it yet. Ben nodded, and we both sat down. For the first time that night, my heart slowed. The weight on my shoulders loosened. The world stopped spinning quite so fast. Eventually, a nurse came out and told us we could each see my father for a few minutes. I told Ben to go first. When it was my turn, I stepped inside the dim hospital room. My father was awake, eyes half open, looking gray and tired but alive. He turned his head slowly toward me. Emma, he whispered. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Hi, Dad. He blinked, his eyes getting wet. I'm sorry. The words broke something inside me, something I hadn't even known was tightly wound. I know, I whispered. And we'll talk. Later. When you're stronger. He nodded weakly. I saw the papers. I saw everything. You were right. We used you. We hurt you. I felt my chest ache. I wanted to protect you, he whispered. I didn't want you to know how bad things were. I didn't want you to carry more than you already had. I'm not angry anymore, I said softly. I just want us to heal. He reached out a trembling hand. I took it. It felt fragile, like holding a thin piece of glass that might break if squeezed too hard. I love you, he whispered. My breath shook. I love you too. For the first time in years, the words didn't feel forced. They felt true. 3 days later, everything came crashing down, but in the right direction. Evan was arrested at a gas station for identity fraud, breaking and entering, and attempted extortion. Not by me, not by my family, but by the lawyer who handed over the documents, including copies of the folder Evan stole, showing every shady thing he had done. Every lie, every fraud, every debt taken in my father's name. He didn't see it coming. He didn't stand a chance. The collectors who had been hounding my father were told officially to stand down, permanently. A fraud file had been opened. A freeze order placed. My dad was no longer responsible for a single cent of the fake debt. Everything Evan tried to use against me ended up destroying him. My father's health improved slowly. My mother apologized, truly apologized, for the first time in my life. She cried until her shoulders shook and told me she wanted to be better. Wanted us to be better. Wanted all the storms to end. I hugged her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed peace. Ben stayed close to me throughout everything, and our relationship grew back into what it used to be, strong and unbreakable. And the envelope, the one I gave my parents, became a symbol in our family. A symbol of honesty, of boundaries, of truth, of a daughter who finally stood up for herself. A daughter who refused to be used anymore. A daughter who chose peace over fear, strength over silence, healing over resentment. Months later, after my father recovered enough to walk around again, we sat on a park bench near the river, the same river where Evan tried to trap me. My father looked at the water and said, "You saved us." I shook my head gently. No, I just told the truth. He smiled, a small, grateful smile I had never seen before. And the truth saved us, he said. I leaned my head against his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I felt seen. I felt free. And I realized something important. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It isn't violent. It isn't dramatic. Sometimes revenge is healing. And sometimes healing is the strongest revenge of all.